Right, Karen, I'm just going to start with your background because I know there's quite a lot of people that watch these things, particularly at a resident level or entry level. So first couple of questions are basically about school and then university and then obviously going to rough trade. Your CV, by the way, is magnificent. See people waffle on their CVs. Your CV is just so information bound. It's wonderful. So I'm just going to be through it basically point by point and touch on things. And then because the big thing I want to know as a consumer primarily, somebody that tries to manage bands, the way that record companies closed down CD plants back in the early 2000s, and obviously how it impacted on you and why they were so short-sighted and let that happen.
CD plants or vinyl plants, probably you mean.
Yeah,
more.
I'm going to let you touch on that. I know it's a specialist subject. I'll let you touch on that. Anyway, my job as host is just to ask a couple of questions and let you flow. It's as simple as that. And okay. I explained to Susan, says me and you aren't short of things to talk about.
No. We've been around for long enough, haven't we?
Unfortunately. So start back to the North London days. By the way, good result for the Ollie Murs yesterday.
Oh, God, it was great.
I keep calling them the Ollies, and people get upset that I call them the Ollies. Simon Raymond hates that I call them the Ollie Murs. Oh, dear. So you started off, as I said, I'm conscious of our audience when I ask you sort of questions. So you started off born and raised in North London, school in North London. Music fan from a very early age?
Yeah, being of a certain age, certainly used to tape the top 40 when I was a kid, as I think we all did then, pressing play and record at the same time. And then at school, I started kind of getting into music, followed around a few friends that were in bands, and then went to my first gig at the age of 14. Which was the Specials, Hammersmith Palais it was. I've got a picture up of the gig in my office, funnily enough, and I went to see the Specials about 2 weeks ago too, so I'm still a big fan.
Oh, I saw them 2 weeks ago in Glasgow as well, fantastic.
They're brilliant. I actually got beaten up by a skinhead girl at the gig, and the bouncers tried to take me home, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go home. One, because I don't want my mum to know what happened, because she'd never let me to a gig again in my life. And two, because I wanted to stay and see the Specials. So yeah, that kind of started me off on my musical passion, I guess.
Was it parents or was it siblings, or just you get into music off your own back kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because I always thought it was off my own back and through my peers at school. But we come from a really musical family. It's my grandma was a pianist, and she used to play the piano in silent movies.
Wow. How could you hear her then?
Oh. I wasn't there. I might be old, but I'm not that old. And then my aunt was an opera singer and also ran her own opera company, and my mum used to sort of sing in musical comedies, and there was always music about the house. So whilst I thought it was just me carving my own way, when I look back, I realised that actually my family is very musical.
Fantastic. And then, big wide world, why did you choose Leeds Uni? As I said, I'm always interested in educational background for people, because I'm conscious when this goes out to all the Resonate watchers, the thousands of people that watch it back, education is a big thing for a lot of people, how they get into the music industry. So what made you go to Leeds Uni as opposed to what establishment in London or Scotland?
Well, I hadn't met my Scottish husband by then. So do you know what? Honestly and truthfully, it's because I had a look at what the music was like at all the universities, and Leeds had a really, really amazing history of having fabulous bands come over there.
Go back to the Futurama festivals there, the 80s, etc.
That's right, John Keenan.
I went to them.
But yes, so that was part of it. Obviously, I had to go to do the subjects that I wanted to go to, and to a university that I actually got into. And I was really interested. So, you know, kind of, I suppose, interesting story. I started off doing something that's completely unrelated. When I was a kid, I think my favourite subject was maths and science. And I found science, I like maths because you could kind of do equations, and you knew you were right at the end. And it was a step-by-step process, really logical. And I think that's probably served me well in business later in life. And then science, I wanted to know more. I wanted to know how things ticked. Why things happened, which is why I started off studying biophysics and genetics.
Wow. I can see the Magnus Pike side of you coming out there.
I'm still fascinated. I mean, I ended up, I failed a year because I was doing too much music stuff when I was at university. And then I ended up actually doing straight genetics. And I'm still really, really fascinated about the whole sort of animal behavior side of genetics.
Wow.
And when I travel, I do tend to travel to places where I can watch animals. So that's never kind of left me. But while I was at uni, I did get involved with the places like Ensign events, where you got to work. Like first year, I was working on the door of all the gigs, so I could get to see loads of gigs. And then in the second year, I was actually booking the indie bands.
Wow, she became an ends convener, basically.
Yeah, completely unpaid, probably why I failed a year. And I did a bit of DJing as well. Oh, I was loved as a DJ, but I was appalling.
Don't worry about it. I've been doing it for 42 years and not found me out yet. Oh dear. So give me an example of some of the bands coming through Leeds Unity time.
Again, I've actually got my old posters in my office.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm looking over now. New Model Army.
Yeah, obviously.
Fad Gadget.
Big favourite of mine.
Who else? I did some kind of off-the-wall things like George Melly and John Chilton's Feet Warmers.
Wow.
Gosh, what else? Misty and Roots.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's a long time ago, you know.
Yeah, it's the same set that's going through. When I was just starting booking bands in Glasgow in 81, 82, it's the same people that are going through in the mid-80s that I was putting in Glasgow. Always play Leeds Uni, play Manchester, play Newcastle, the circuit. So it's the exact same bands.
Yeah,
New Model Army were massive in Glasgow, always a massive following in Glasgow.
Oh, there's quite a lot of people here at Key Production that are still like absolute fans of New Model Army and go to absolutely everything that they do.
Well, I must confess, one of the few bands for that era I didn't get them then, I don't get them now. But the longevity, fair play to them for still going, but they've always had a long fan base. Just personal level, they were never for me. That track Vengeance was the bane of my life back when I was DJing.
Oh, I love that.
Nah, not a fan. Anyway, so you left the world of uni. You went travelling for a while, I believe. You ended up in Jerusalem of all places.
Yeah, I kind of did my gap year the other way around to most people, which for me was probably a good thing because, as my parents quite rightly pointed out, had I gone and done a gap year and gone gallivanting after school, I probably never would have gone to university and things would be very different. And so what happened, and this is maybe a cautionary tale, so I was very bad at planning my future at university, and I didn't go to any of the job fairs or any of the career days or anything that was laid on for me. I was probably too busy seeing bands or sitting in the bar. So as time was coming on and we were getting to the end, I absolutely didn't have a clue what I was going to do. And so I asked my professor if he knew anyone abroad that I could go and maybe work abroad for a bit. And he got me, he put me forward for a job at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem in the genetics lab.
Wow.
I discovered at that point that wearing a white coat and staring over a Petri dish really wasn't for me. It's just, I mean, I guess sometimes you've got to try things to know that you're really not suited to them, and I wasn't suited to it. So, but I kind of wasn't ready to go home. So I kind of got, I worked in the botany department for a bit, in the archaeology department. I did some film extra work on an Agatha Christie movie. Never spotted myself in it though. Worked in bars. I've always worked in bars. I've always kind of like worked to, you know, get extra money, really. So I worked in bars and got a great goth nightclub called the Phonographic in Leeds, and behind the bar there. And then when I was in Israel, I was working in bars as well. And then sort of time came to an end, and I stuck a backpack on my back and travelled round sort of Egypt, Turkey, a lot of Europe.
That must be quite scary as a single woman in the late 80s. Wow.
I honestly can't believe that I did it. And if you think about it, there was no such thing as mobile phones.
Correct.
So I'm an only child, a single woman. I was in my 20s. Can you imagine what my poor parents went through?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they didn't know where I was half the time. The only way you could contact them was to go to a post office, and you queued up like by loads and loads of phone booths. And sometimes the queues were so much and it was really hot. And you're like, oh, I can't be bothered to check in today. So they just didn't know where I was. But I lived to tell the tale.
You come all the way back through Turkey and stuff and end up back through Europe and back in the UK, decided that's it, I want to get a job in the music industry.
I didn't actually know what I wanted to do, in all honesty. And you know, I'd lived away from my parents now for whatever, 4, 5, 6 years or so. And I had nowhere to go to apart from moving back to my parents. And I was just a bit lost. And when you've been traveling, I think Morocco was my second last stop, and then Spain for a bit, and then back. And you kind of come back with a bit of a fuzzy head and really not being very grounded. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But my best mate turned around to me and said, well, why don't you get into the music industry? Because that's what you're passionate about. That's what's always kind of driven you. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So I wanted to do that. And at those times, so again, we're talking, very late 70s. No.
Mid 80s,
sorry, late 80s.
Yeah, I've got you starting as a receptionist in rough trade in 1988, thanks to my detailed research.
Yes,
and your very wonderful CV that I managed to get hold of.
Yeah, I sure did. Well, I got told at the time that the only way a woman could get into the music industry was to be a secretary. Yeah, I want to obviously today with music industry more than 50% female. I want to touch on that, about how much it's changed from the late 80s to today. It's more than 50% female at entry level.
Yes.
Yeah, it drops off.
Yes.
Which is something that myself and a group of women have got together to form an initiative to help.
Don't worry, I'm going to touch on that as we go through this, because you've been an inspiration to a lot of people, and I want that to come across in this interview, how much of an inspirational you are to younger people coming through behind your generation did. Our generation did, rather.
Yes. So anyway, I didn't start as a secretary because I didn't want to type, and I didn't want to be a secretary or a PA. I kind of wanted one myself. However, I did get a job as a receptionist at Rough Trade. I think at the beginning I was just covering some like long sick leave for someone, and I kind of made a nuisance of myself. Not so much.
Can't believe that for a second.
My first day, I managed to take my own initiative when I shouldn't have done, and ended up smashing a window.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Anyway,
you're a right pain even then.
They kept me. I asked a lot of questions. I think it's something that my parents always really encouraged me to. I was the first one in class to put my hand up if I didn't understand something. And I really kind of live by that still.
I totally agree with you. If you don't know something, ask. It's the only way we go on.
You know, and you know what? You're not going to be the only person that wants to ask. You're just
Correct.
going to be the person that's got the balls to ask.
Correct.
So at Rough Trade, I learnt a lot about the workings of the music industry, I suppose. There was a distribution company, but there was also the record label that was upstairs.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got to know, or try to understand, what each of the departments did by asking a lot of questions. And I got asked to do some invoice checking. That was it. When I was on reception for the production department. Now, the production department was the department that was organising all the manufacturing of all the product that was distributed on a manufacturing deal with the distribution company. So I was checking invoices for them. There's my maths, you see. My enjoyment of maths and liking to kind of like make sure everything's correct.
An enjoyment of arithmetic rather than maths, if we're going to be pedantic about it.
Okay. And obviously did an okay job. And then one day, one of the guys that was working in that department literally phoned them up from the airport and said, I've left.
Wow. That's an unusual way to put your notice in.
I thought it was really funny. And yeah, so they took me on in the production department. I think my first or second week there, my boss was off sick. I was just thrown in at the deep end, hardly knowing what I was doing. But yeah, sink or swim, and I think I swam.
Well done, you. You were there for a couple of years. Any particular memories from that day? Because I noticed your CV, you mentioned you worked with people like the Shaman and KLF, both good Scottish bands.
Yeah, indeed. Oh no, it was brilliant. I mean, sort of Bill and Jimmy used to be in our office all the time. You look back on it, it's really, when I sort of tell my friend's husband, sort of stories of the past, I kind of almost don't believe them myself. And obviously Alan McGee was a big character at that time as well. Yeah, it was really exciting. You know, there was a lot of amazing music. God, Yaz was #1, I remember, so it was all sort of big life music as well. Yeah, it was very exciting. Again, going to a lot of shows, getting to meet amazing people. A lot of fun, you know. And when I started, I was on so little money, that all I could do really was afford my rent and the train fare to get to the office, and to eat. You know, that was about it. So all the gigs was a bonus because you got to go to them for nothing. I think it's possibly why people in the music industry, certainly from our time, are always the first at a free bar and just getting as much in as you can, because in those days you couldn't afford to buy drinks.
I know the feeling. Unfortunately, to this day, I know the feeling.
Rough trade there. I think I learned very quickly and I climbed very quickly. I took the opportunity.
So you've been there a couple of years. We're getting to 1990. What made you negotiate a redundancy and start your own company?
A new boss came in and we didn't really see eye to eye in many things.
Okay. So you decided time to spread your wings.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, at one point he had turned around to me and said, production's one person and a computer. Now, bear in mind, we didn't even have a computer at this point. I think, I don't know whether that spurred it on. You know, some of the things that he was asking me to do, I didn't agree with. There was just a lot going on that just wasn't right for me. So, asked to be made redundant.
So mid-20s, you decided to take the plunge.
Yeah, I had nothing to lose, Tam. I was, young, free, single. I didn't own anything.
Yeah.
You know, not a house, not a car, not anything. So literally nothing to lose.
So £2,000 and you set up Key.
Yeah.
I was going to say, after spending £2,000, you couldn't have been feeling $2,000. I had to get that one in, sorry. It
was enough. I very kindly and generously, there's a record label called Jungle Records. And I'd seen they were doing quite a lot of stuff through Rough Trade, and I'd approached them and said, if I can do it for you a lot cheaper, would you sort of support me? in doing what I'm doing. And at the time, it happened that they had a spare space in their building in Chalk Farm, and offered me sort of rent-free space. And then I was doing their work for, it was substantially cheaper than they were getting it by going through rough trade. But I knew with the amount of work that they had, it was enough to enable me to live.
You became a broker to an extent in those days. You're basically a broker. Well done, you.
Yeah, and Jungle Records are still a customer to this day. That's 31 years.
I think that's
later.
the biggest testament to it. I think your CV also talked about damaged goods being an early client are still with you. So I think that's the biggest testament of all, that a number of years later, shall we say, they're still with you. Yeah. That's the biggest accolade you can get as a supplier, that the companies are still want to deal with you and not any of your competitors.
Yes, I do think that's quite remarkable. I've also got a couple of staff that have been with me for 25 years.
I noticed that as well. It's phenomenal in our business these days that you've still got people. That's a testament to both sides of the coin, both them as they've grown and worked with you, and you as an employer, you see a value to them. Because I'm going to touch a thing you mentioned in your CV and looked up a couple of things. You're a great one for delegating to your staff. Again, I'm thinking of people watching this recording and about delegation and giving your head to people and letting them, and not be leaning over their shoulder every 10 minutes.
Doesn't work. We're adults. We're adults. Yeah. You know, you've got to enable people. And give them autonomy. And you know what? I mean, I couldn't do the job my staff do now. I really couldn't. And I think, you know, you have to sort of come as an entrepreneur. So probably one of the hardest things to learn is to give up what you're doing and enable other people to be able to do it, and realize that whilst they might not do it the same way as you do it, as long as the results are the same or better and the customers are happy, then they might end up doing it a lot better than you. And testament to the people with me now, they certainly do it a lot better than I could now. I think sort of, what I do has very much changed over the years. But no, I don't think micromanagement works. It builds up resentment. People are scared all the time, looking over their shoulders. Yeah, I do think you have to treat people like adults, and they'll respect you for it. Yeah.
So you've got the company, you've managed to procure a few clients, it's going well. And then in the early 1990s, you started another couple of companies as well. What made you take on another company when you've just got one up and running well?
Maybe I had the entrepreneurial bug. I think I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I never thought I was going to be in business. I didn't plan for it. But I suppose when you've seen success in something and someone comes to you with another idea, or you have an idea, then it's kind of like a why not? What have I got to lose type scenario. But I didn't lose, I learned.
So was the first one the World Music Distribution Company then? Yeah. You moved into World Music as well as specialising what the key were nowadays, putting on all the records from the likes of Jungle and Damaged Goods. What made you go into World Music?
I can't, that's a long time.
Is this the time of the Boondoo Boys and peeling stuff, picking up and all that? And cooking, the early days of cooking vinyl, presumably? Picking up and all that sort of stuff?
Well, it was, I suppose, so I'd come from distribution. And I suppose I'd seen a bit of a niche in world music distribution.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of joint thing with my boyfriend at the time. Yeah, heed the words, going into business with partners, family, think very carefully about it.
Yes.
And we were starting from scratch, and I was trying to balance building up key production at the same time as doing Labyrinth, it was called. And we had a modicum of success. We used to sell on behalf of our clients at a lot of kind of fairs and festivals and things, as well as distributing. But it was, I think we bit off more than we could chew. And I've learned that, although by the amount of companies I have become involved with that haven't worked out, maybe I didn't learn quickly enough, but trying to do too much is a very difficult thing, and sometimes entrepreneurs and a lot of people, we do get tied up because we think we can do one thing well and then we take on lots more, and it's very hard to...
Basically juggling plates, isn't it? You're real plate jugglers on Cracker Jack, try to juggle all these plates and make sure nothing smashes.
Yeah, I mean, I still do a lot of that now, as I'm sure we'll come on to. But these ones, especially when I was kind of building a business, it just didn't work out for one reason or another. One of the other things that I also set up was a sync company.
Well, that's my next question, actually. I must have been very early, because I can't recall of all our peers anybody working in sync in the early 90s.
It was, I think that's what our downfall was, is it was too early. Yeah. It might have, was it the early 90s? It might have even been 2000.
According to my records here, it was 92.
Oh, there you go. Sorry?
92.
Really? No, I think it was later. It was later than that.
Oh, well, okay.
So yeah, I better change that bit. That was, but when it was, I think, a bit too early. So, but again, you live and you learn.
So you're building up, when you move forward, you're building up keys work away nicely, and then you go into taking over AZ Musical Services.
He said, yeah, it's funny. So the guy that owned A to Z he had the UK company and a US company. Right. And my friend Sarah runs very successfully the US company. Really similar to us, even work with some of the same clients and, constant contact with each other. So she bought the American part out and I bought the UK part out. And we've probably got about 5 guys. So this was 2002. Yeah. And we've got about 5 people that came over from there that are still with me now. So they're up to 20 years next year.
Wasn't the language a problem?
The language?
Yes, Americans try to speak English.
Well, no, I bought the UK part out.
All right, sorry.
So I was okay there. The wonderful Neil came over with them, and it has been sort of working alongside me ever since. So that was my first acquisition. We were very similar companies, and Neil and I used to talk quite a lot anyway. Just about what we were doing. So it was a friendly kind of takeover, as it were.
So you're building up as well. When you move forward to 2007 and your world changes so much, suddenly nobody's buying vinyl, everyone's going into digital downloads. How did Key and all the other people learn to adapt and change and basically stay alive?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, we've always, even when vinyl was going down, which seems a really funny thing to talk about now, which was during the 90s, sort of, 90s, it all began to kind of nosedive down. Yeah. We always had a niche in it. There was always some sort of niche, be it mainly through the independents, be it sort of dance music or sort of indie music, post-punk, whatever. There was always something there. So we always had something, even though it was going down. I think the biggest hit was possibly CD singles. Yes. Which we used to press, millions, literally millions of. And almost overnight, that whole business disappeared. And we did, we went through some troubling times. I had to make people redundant.
That must have been the first time that ever happened to you.
Oh, God. But you know what? Because when I started, I was really young. And all the people that came and joined Key, we're like a little family. We all used to go out together. One couple got married from meeting at Key. So when I had to make that decision, I had to basically make my friends redundant. Whenever people ask me what's the worst thing that's ever happened in your professional life, it's that.
That's one of my questions off the list then. But because you're such a people person, I can imagine how much that have been sleepless nights for you as well, going through that process.
Sleepless nights, tears.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Luckily, they're all still friends now, and they've gone to bigger and better things. But yeah, that was, oh God, that was horrible. So I had to do that. Obviously, you know, you look at the company, and you try to work out what the best thing is for it. And I went through quite a lot of, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to change? We're going to have to change what we do. And I think a lot of people that were doing what I did at the time thought the same. One of the things, obviously, to look at, is to move outside the music industry and look at what you can do outside the music industry. And I mean, we're going forward some years now, are we, to well,
when I first knew you, obviously you're pressing up CDs, you're doing vinyl, you're doing DVDs, but the big artwork parts I noticed you've done over the years as well, you really became specialised in artwork as well, and some of the beautiful packages, the likes of 4AD and Creation and Factory and all my favourite labels, started doing specialised box sets, and you've been very much involved in all them over the last few years, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's because thinking about where we went during crises after crises, I bought a company called Think Tank Media, and they were specialising in
packaging, guys.
Very high-end packaging. The story about that's quite interesting. That happened over a few drinks.
I can't believe that of you.
That I met, so one of the women the woman that was one of the directors of Think Tank, was bizarrely one of the representatives of a print company that we still use now, and used when we very first started. And she was my print rep, and then she went off and did her own thing, and set up Think Tank. And she'd heard about another venture that I was doing and got really excited about it, and said, come on, we haven't met for ages, let's meet over a drink. And we met over several drinks, and in the end, we're ending up discussing the options of me buying Think Tank. And so it came to be, and that brought a load of people in that were really highly skilled and knowledgeable about bespoke packaging. So that brought all of that skill set inside, which in my head was for me to try to move out of the music industry and kind of secure things outside of that. But in actual fact, it brought the skills to the table of key as well, when, like you say, a lot of record labels had started doing a lot more bespoke, beautiful box sets, and so on and so forth. So that brought that knowledge in-house. And we still have Think Tank as a kind of like separate piece of key production that works outside the music industry on bespoke packaging, but we also have all the knowledge in-house to work with.
So you could say they're a key component to your companies.
Very good. You've been practicing, haven't you?
I never stop practicing. One day I'll get good at it.
You're very
I must confess, you saying about having a drink, I don't think I've ever met you and had a drink in my life.
No, don't. Yes, I've a terrible reputation.
Not at all. Oh, well. So moving on, you've done Think Tank and your Pierce production company as well. What did you do with Pierce?
We did a joint venture deal.
Uh-huh.
So what it means is we've got a set of sort of my staff in their offices, when we sit in offices, of course, and they work solely on the output of PIAS. So now it's Integral and the PIAS Association co-op labels. So we do all of the manufacturing on their behalf. So it's a different team. Well, it's a team as part of the whole team. It's just, again, it's another piece of the puzzle, really. And so, yeah, they work on them and their release schedules and everything. And then so you use the same systems.
I said, getting back to the theme of your personal development over the years, 2014, you get involved in the Goldman Sachs scheme. Do you want to elucidate that a little bit?
Yeah, so I decided to do a business course.
Listen, we never stop learning. Me and you being 50-somethings, we never stop learning.
Do you know what?
I go to Resonate and I find some kids, and it keeps inspiring me as well. So I wanted to touch on what you learned. I mean, being a wee bit older and going on one of these courses, because I don't know if I could go through another course, but quite impressed that you did.
Do you know what? It was fabulous. And you've really hit the nail on the head about learning. And people often ask me, again, I might have crossed you off another question, is, what keeps you going? How come you've still got the passion for it now? And it is because I'm always learning. It's because things are always changing and I need to sort of work and change with them. And constantly learning is, it does give me pleasure. And you've got to, because the world's changing so bloody fast.
Tell me about it. I feel like a dinosaur some days waking up when I talk to Susan and Billy and all the team at Resonate. I just feel like, I mean, when they asked me a few weeks ago about potential guest speaker stuff, I'm so glad I put your name forward as somebody could talk to, because I just know you're an absolute inspiration to people from 18 starting out in this industry to people at the other end of the industry spectrum like myself. You're still an inspiration to all of us, Cam. Long may it continue.
Thank you very much.
So you've come out the Goldman Sachs thing and you've thought that's been beneficial. What was the best thing you learned from that scheme?
What did I learn? I think, okay, so what I learned was I knew more than I thought I knew. That I'd learned how to do business by doing business. That I wish I'd maybe learned a little bit more before I had to learn it all the hard way. But also really importantly, that I could give a lot back because I had all of that experience. I mean, it's a really, really inspiring course to go on because you're in a room with loads and loads of other entrepreneurs and you're learning about how their businesses work and kind of listening to it and planning for the future. And I think, again, one of the really important things I did was to learn quite a lot about disaster planning. came handy a couple of times, I'll tell you that. Especially recently. And just sort of it filled in some gaps. And as I say, I also felt that I had quite a lot of knowledge to pass on to other people. And the cohort that I went on, my sort of like little team of us, we're still in contact and we still sort of see each other and meet up and kind of, help each other, inspire each other, and so on. And that's, that's really great. And it's great to do things outside the music industry as well.
Well, I'm going to touch on that. Don't worry, I've got a few questions on that as well. So getting back to that, you've built up key, you've got a reputation for long-term employee, people with you 20, 25 years. Do you ever feel you have to put a sort of golden handcuffs on anybody? Is there a key worker that could maybe try and poach some of your carton and try and stab you in the back, for want of a better word for it? Well, how do you stop that happening?
Someone did. As I said, the disaster planning came in really handy.
Okay, and you want to touch on that, or just leave that story for another day? It was a shame. Someone left and took a very large customer and went to work with them instead of us, and it was a shame. Touch wood, it's only really happened once. Good.
I think, and to be honest with you, there's, that you have to be a certain type of person to want to actually go out and do it on your own and take all that risk. And I suppose in a way, good luck to them for doing it. It hurt. I'm not going to say it didn't hurt, but we rebuilt around it, and it was, mainly one customer. So we had a lot of other customers. They teach you that in business. It's like, don't ever rely on one customer too heavily. I suppose there's always the risk, but I'd hope that, well, one, as I say, there's not that many people that would want to actually go off and take the risk. And two, I would hope that I had an open enough conversation with everyone here and treated everybody with enough respect and well enough that they wouldn't want to do that, or that we could work something out if they did.
So after doing that Goldman Sachs scheme, I noticed you've been involved with two other companies, Bread and Modo, in 2014, 2016. You want to touch on the two of them?
Yeah, Breed was, we noticed So the type of work that we do is we deal with both individual artists, very small labels, people that are just starting up, right to huge record labels, big label services companies, massive bands. So we kind of go through the whole range. We started off a lot doing the sort of smaller work, and we've always really, it's part of what we do. We never want to forget that that's what built the company. And we'd started noticing that there was a company up in Sheffield called Breed Media that were kind of getting a lot of that work of ours. No, look at me. Work that we thought we maybe should be getting, and didn't know why and what was drawing people to them. And it just so happened that myself and the guy that was running it at the time, Tom, he was kind of considering moving on and doing something else, but wanted the company to keep going. When we started chatting, and they'd built all their work around online and social. So he knew all about AdWords, and he knew how to make your website put all the right, God, what's it called when you put all the right wording into it so it brings people in and all of that. Oh, I don't know. It'll come to me. So basically he was attracting everybody by using social and internet, all the things that we weren't doing. So we were very much, and we still are, go out, build the relationships, meet the people, do a lot of networking and so on. We're still very much about that, but we were missing this chunk. So Tom and I were talking, and we decided it would be a good idea if I bought them out, and so that we brought that another piece of the jigsaw in to make us a kind of more rounded company. And so he taught us all we needed to know, as it were, and we actually built our sort of digital marketing from what he taught us. And now we have marketing manager, a marketing assistant, and someone that does all that of our sort of photography and videography, that's kind of grown out of our knowledge from that. So so that was Breed. Modo were based down in Brighton and were a competitor of ours, and they were winning work off us because they had a product design department in-house. So really, really clever, amazing designers that can do 3D designs. So when someone comes to you and wants you to make your product, sort of make a product with you, you talk to them and you get an idea of what they want, and then you can put it together as a 3D render that will look exactly how it is when it's printed. So obviously the product designers have to have knowledge of both design, 3D design, and print to know that it's actually going to work when they put it all together. And they were winning work from us because they had a product design department. And so it came to be that, again, we brought them out and brought all of that knowledge to us. Now, we still keep the Modo design department. It's very much sort of part of us. So when you see, our logos, we still keep, a lot of the people that we bought, because it serves a slightly different purpose, as it were. And we wanted everyone to keep their identity, because what they brought to us is so important to make up part of the whole.
Yeah.
So that was Modo. So we've got a lovely new office in Brighton. I know everyone's moving out of their offices. We've just moved into a new one.
Fantastic. So one word written on my paper: Nicaragua. Go sell us this, and it's a fantastic story.
So I love traveling, as it probably came out before.
Yeah.
I've always been very much aware of sustainability. in fact, at Key Production, we sort of help and advise people to manufacture in the most sustainable way possible. And I went on, when I used to go on holiday, so one of the things that I learned as an entrepreneur is you need time out.
Yes.
And that's when your brain kind of relaxes and you begin to work out better ideas, think about the future. If you're just in it all the time, you don't actually get a really clear vision of what you want. Because I love traveling a lot, and because we were successful and I've got an amazing team behind me, I used to go away on quite long holidays.
Looking back to the delegation thing, the fact that you're confident, comfortable in the team you've built, you don't need to be there 24/7.
Exactly. And it was good for me and the company. They got me out of their hair for a few weeks. My brain was allowed to kind of relax and think about stuff. And so I did it kind of fairly regularly, a couple of times a year. And I've got some friends of mine, and they're very similar to me. They like going away, interesting places, normally, with animals, as I said before, beautiful landscapes. And they'd said to me, you haven't been much to Central America, you've got to go to Nicaragua. We went there, we stayed in this amazing place called Morgan's Rock that they've just sort of reforested a load of areas. All the animals have come back in from where the farmers used to slash and burn it. The architecture is fantastic. There's lots of unspoilt beaches, rainforests. It's great. You've got to go. So I went. I stayed in this place, which was fabulous. And when I was staying in, so that one of the main sort of cultural cities that you go and visit, there's a place called Granada. Beautiful. And it's on, there's a massive lake. Well, there's a couple of massive lakes in Nicaragua. It's known as the land of lakes and volcanoes. And I was in a restaurant one day, and there was an A board, and on the A board it had a picture of an island, and it said "Island for sale." So on the lake near Granada, there's lots of island called Las Isletas, and they reckon there's at least one for every day of the year, all of varying sizes from this big to very big. All that were formed from a volcanic eruption. And anyway, they said island for sale, and it was cheap. And so speak to the owner, they'll take you to see it. I'm like, what have I got to lose? Let's go for a trip to the islands and see this island. And I went to the island, and my brain started working, and I'm like, well, if I've been to this really lovely hotel that's on the beach, that's all eco, sustainable, and it's really beautiful, and obviously it's been quite successful, why isn't there anywhere like that in Granada, which is the city where all the tourists are? And the fancy hotel wasn't very fancy, and it was a bit weird, and there was nothing like that. And of course, neighbouring country Costa Rica, who've just got the Earth Award from Prince William, were doing so much in sustainable travel. And it was kind of, why hasn't it spilled over to Nicaragua yet? Why aren't people going there? Surely, if I've been to this other place, if I would go to a place near or in Granada, so there must be other people that would go. And I literally just started doing kind of back of the envelope sums of what it would cost. I was asking people, what does it cost to build? What does it cost to do this? How much does staffing cost? And I got quite excited and maybe a little carried away. So I started talking to the owner, and when this was in, I think, December, January, then South by Southwest Festival was in March, and Nicaragua's a hop, skip and a jump from Texas. It's like one flight, I think it's 3 hours, maybe a bit less. And I thought, well, I'll just go back. And kind of before I knew it, I'd got a deposit deed on this island. I know.
And the eco hostel you built just got an award, didn't it?
We've had sort of TripAdvisor awards and National Geographic. We were, they unfortunately don't run the scheme anymore, but we're one of their National Geographic sort of eco hotels of the world. I can't remember what the exact phrase is.
Wow.
But so I mean, it's, you know, and again, I'm trying to build that while the world's collapsing in London, and that was juggling. And there was a period of time, again, goes back to trusting the team, where I was out there for a few months and then maybe here for a month and then out there again. So I was kind of going between the two during the build of it. And it's all built sustainably with Rainforest Alliance certified wood, all locals that built it and that work in it as well. All local food, local produce, everything we try and keep, and then we help the local community as well. Been helping the local school and the people that live on the islands, sort of surrounding us, by employing them, by buying their goods. With the school, it's painting the classrooms. We've been getting psychologists and doctors over there to help out on a regular basis. We've put a clean drinking water system in the school that can be used by the surrounding villages as well. And things like that, which obviously it's been closed for a while now. But when it's open, then the tourists that come are able to give back to the local community while staying in the hotel. So it's all.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. And then, young lady, you managed to procure an award in 2018. What was that award for?
I just got another one, actually. It was the NatWest Businesswoman of the Year.
Fabulous.
Every woman, that's it. NatWest Every Woman Businesswoman of the Year. Entrepreneur of the Year. Have I got a thing of it here? I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Anyway. Oh gosh, I'm terrible, aren't I? And then I got the Great British Business Woman in the electronics and manufacturing just literally last week.
Wow.
So.
And you also picked up the townhouse you done up, the house that you stay in. What award did that win?
Oh yeah, that got an Reba Architect Award. I used all the wood, so we shipped in Rainforest Alliance certified wood from Nicaragua.
Phenomenal.
So I got my architect here to speak to my architect there, and they all worked out together of how we could bring kind of a bit of Nicaragua into our house in the UK.
Fabulous. And won some TV award as well, I believe.
Oh, we were on telly. We were on Grand Designs. We didn't win it.
Still took on a short list at something that's pretty impressive, is it not?
Yeah, Grand Designs House of the Year it was called.
Well done, you. So I'm going to wrap up. If I go over time, Susan will kill me. So to some young entrepreneurs in Scotland, people are watching Resonate just now, all the young students for the various college courses that want to break into our industry, give them some key advice from somebody that's been there, done it, worn the t-shirt, an ecological t-shirt at that. Any advice you want to pass on to folks? I noticed in your CV saying you want to give a lot back. So what can you give back to the Karen Emanuels of tomorrow?
Before I do that, just a brief mention of moving the needle, which is something that we're trying to help give back, particularly to young women sort of entering and moving through the industry. So look up what we're doing. It's mtnnow.com. What would I advise now? I'd say do it, be passionate about what you're doing, be authentic in whatever you do. Know your numbers. I'm a right one for knowing your numbers. It stresses me when I see young entrepreneurs that actually don't know what they're doing, and especially in the music industry, I've seen it quite a lot. Because people are very creative, they go down that creativity path. They might have some success, but they don't kind of know what to do with the success. So if you're that person, chum up with somebody that can do the number side of things, so that you've got a really good balance there. What else? Go for it.
And whatever conference you go to all over the world, always stand and talk to a Scotsman with a kilt on at the bar.
How can you not?
Well, you actually done every woman's. Did you not marry a Scotsman in the end?
I did marry a Scotsman.
Got your own Scotsman. Well done, you.
And and in fact, I'm coming up there for the Say Awards
on Saturday.
Yes. Will I see you there?
I've got something else on Saturday. I'm going to miss it for the first time ever this Saturday. It was a dreadful date clash for me this Saturday. Unfortunately, one of the artists I'm working with has got an album launch in Glasgow, so I can't nip through to Edinburgh on Saturday night. So I'm going to miss the Say Award for the first time in its 10-year history. I'm gutted.
Oh, that's a real shame that I won't get to see you.
Oh, well. I might turn up in Edinburgh on Sunday morning.
Sorry?
I might turn up in Edinburgh on Sunday morning if you're still partying.
Yeah, not so sure. I'm taking a couple of the family with me. So,
good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a great night on Saturday, and fingers crossed to get a worthy winner this year.
Yes, I do hope so. And you never know. I mean, I'm around until Tuesday, so maybe Monday.
Okay, I'm still 4 days Glasgow, 4 days Edinburgh. So I work in 2 cities. Okay. So I can come and catch up with you. Lovely to catch up. Not see each other face to face for a long time.
No,
it's been a pleasure spending time and getting to know a bit more. I said the CV I just read your CV, and it's really sometimes I'm panicking what to ask people. But as I explained to Susan this morning with Karen, I just press play and then it all goes swimmingly. So lovely to see you, and hopefully the people watching this will be as inspired as I was by meeting you. And fingers crossed, the next 30 years will be as fabulous as the last 30 years have been for you.
Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see
Karen.
you.
Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye.